Good evening, Canby. We are going to call the work session for October 4th to order. Mayor Hodson is traveling, so I will be presiding this evening. We pray for safe travels for him. We are going to be discussing the general fund revenue and expenditure forecasting. So with that, I will turn it over to Eileen.
Great, thank you, Council. I'm very pleased to present this financial modeling project to you tonight. It started, as I've mentioned before, we had done, Eric was doing some work on the capital improvement plan, and that work kind of automatically led him to do the financial model for various funds, but tonight we wanted to present the general fund because that's the most significant fund. What I want out of tonight is just your familiarity with the model. We don't need to make any decisions tonight on it. You'll see it again and again and again and again is my hope. And that you begin to become familiar with it so that you can use it in goal setting, decision making, strategic investments or decision making that you have, and that you can see how it ultimately, and we're not going to show you this tonight either, we'll show you the effect of it, but ultimately we will bring it live and in a goal setting environment. For example, you could say, you know, how much if we increase this revenue source by, and you'll see how it would bend the lines, and you'll understand what bend the lines means as you go through the presentation. But, you know, you could play with any scenario assumption that you want, and this model will produce it for you. So I think it's a very good product, and it will help you down the line in making decisions. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to Eric and let him make this presentation. And, you know, I'm going to speak for him, but is it okay if they ask questions along the way? Great, thank you.
All right, counselors, nice to see you. So just to expand on what Eileen said a little bit, when I was doing, let's see, it's probably on the next slide. When I was finishing the FY 2021 audit and then started working on the 23 budget, one of the things I had to do was to transfer SDC funds from the SDC fund to the capital projects that had been done. When I tried to do that, I realized there wasn't really a comprehensive process in place that was tracking capital projects on the long term. Our budget is focused on a 1 year thing, but a lot of these capital projects go longer than 1 year. So there were numbers written in future years, but there wasn't like the funding streams weren't defined saying like, well, we're going to take this much from park improvement SDC and apply it to these projects, right? So I saw that there was a need there for doing long-term planning. So in December of 22, I had this idea that we needed to have an SDC administration team, which I had brought to Scott. Scott liked it. We wanted to do it. It just never took off. But then again, in July of this year, it was still nagging at me that I needed to work on this capital project thing. I wanted to come up with a whole process that was team-based so that if one person leaves the city, that one person's not holding all the information about capital planning that goes over a long-term thing. So my solution to that is to have a team of people that are always looking at it. So if one person leaves, the team can fill in the rest of the teammates about what's happening, right? So, and we could bring that information to council and budget, and it's just more transparent. So I just started working on it myself, and the first thing I have to do is forecast revenue and expenditure in various funds to know how much money is going to be available to spend on capital projects. I built a 5-year forecasting worksheet. I know that we've got to allocate the funding streams for every project because every project can use different funding streams. And then I had to kind of just write an outline for what I thought this whole team-based approach was going to be, which I'm calling the capital project planning team. And then Part of that was doing the revenue and expenditures for every fund. And when we get like halfway through this presentation is when I saw problems in the general fund. I let that sit on my desk for a couple days and then reevaluated how I had done all this forecasting, and then got a hold of Eileen right away and told her what was happening. So what I'm presenting to you tonight, the first half of this is my idea of how the capital project planning team is going to work. Then the second half will be what I found in the general fund that we need to talk about. So for forecasting capital project, the goals were, one, that we have good estimates and forecast resources and requirement for future years. We need to know how much is going out, how much is coming in. I think it's a good idea that we identify and prioritize projects. We had a long list of capital projects. As a team, we would sit down and look at those capital projects with the goals of the council, assign priorities to the projects. It's really important that we get accurate project estimates on these projects. That is one hole that I don't really know how the estimates are done, but I do know that the actual cost versus what our estimates sometimes vary widely. So the estimates need to get tightened up. And then the big thing for me was the allocating the funding streams. We have, I think, 11 different SDC funding streamlines, plus we have grants, ARPA money being one of them, and the fund balance, and park maintenance fees, street maintenance fees. There's all this money that we have available, and we need to take every one of those streams and allocate it to the project in percentage, priority, whatever. And then the fourth bullet point is project tracking and project management. I'm sure that there's project management happening, but as a team, we're not getting a download on what's happening with the project so that like finance would be aware of the financial implications, or if someone else has another project that they're keyed in on getting, if one project is going to be a detrimental impact to that, we just need to be team-based and have that all happening. The other thing that I think this is good for is both the swim and transit departments have got approved in their budgets to do these bigger capital projects. Like transit wants $3 million to do a transit building, right? They had $1.5 million approved in the 23 budget, so that $1.5 million is sitting there, and they got another $1.5 million approved this year. So they have their $3 million, but that data that transit has the $3 million for the building is not really written down clearly anywhere. So having a capital project funding team like this would allow different funds to save money over years, and everyone would be aware that's what they're doing. So when we see big fund balances in transit for next year, we'll know that part of the $4 million or whatever they'll have, $3 million of that is set aside to do these building, to do their project. So those were my goals for the capital project team.
And thus, we're not spending the same SDC dollars twice. So,
Quick question. What's the acronym SDC?
System development charges.
Okay.
So this is the method I used for the forecasting. I took 5 years of actual data, and I have those by account line. I do that so I can see trends, like when we get the ARPA money, right? That's going to come in and be a huge number in 1 year, the second year, and then disappear, right? So it's good to see those trends. I use the current year budget, the one that just got adopted, and then I'm forecasting as simply as possible as I can for 5 years in the future. I'm doing the expenditure categories just by personnel and material and services as just single line amounts. I'm not doing every single account, projecting those forward. It's just the personnel line, right? And then the capital outlay, I'm actually writing in every project so we can see what capital projects are coming up for the city. So this is an example of what the forecasting looks like for revenue, and I chose the SDC fund. You can see in the top part of this, there's those 11 revenue streams in the SDCs of the data. On the left-hand side is 5 years of data. And then on the right-hand side, we have the 24 budget, and then there is actually 5 years of projected data going forward. But just because the spreadsheet's so massive, I only have the 3 years showing, just because I wanted to show you a sample of what the sheet looks like. The transfers out and other uses down in the bottom, those are the planned SDC transfers for the current capital projects that are on the books right now. None of the other funds have revenue kind of listed with that level of detail, but because those SDC fees all get used separately, I wanted more detail there. And I'm doing just, like if we look at the SDC fee, at the first one, street improvement SDCs, you can watch the dollar amount across the top. And in this version, I'm just saying, okay, we're going to get like 650,000 a year, year over year. Like I said, I'm trying to make this super basic so we have a starting point for just looking at forecasting. I was talking to Eileen before this, like as the team develops this more, we might have more detail about these funding streams where we can adjust it so it's not so basic, but I needed a basic model to move forward. So that's the revenue. This is forecasting of expenditures, and this is what I was talking about. We're looking at the street fund right here, and personnel's not showing, just materials and services. So on the left-hand side, there's actual numbers for the last 5 years for each one of those line items. But then when I'm projecting it forward, I'm just using the category total, the total M&S number, and I'm just applying a straight percentage to it. I don't know what it is in this case, probably 6% increase year over year, right? And then we see the capital outlay at the bottom, and those are project specifics down there. For the 24 budget, I have the actual dollar amounts written in there because those are approved dollar amounts from the budget. And then I'm just doing a category total, the capital outlay total at the bottom with the, that's actually based off the 5-year CIP was part of the budget. And then I use that data to make this summary table. And the summary table is basically taking beginning balance, the revenue, how much are your resources, and then listing all of the category expenditures just by the category line. This is to allow us to look at what's happening with the fund balance. So in the street fund in this example, in 26, we have a negative fund balance of 787,000, right? That's what I wanted this forecasting to be for. So we can look at the summary page and then we're like, oh, we need to move some of the capital projects around, right? Okay, before I go on to the capital projects part, does anyone have any questions? Jason.
So it's showing here, yeah, you were saying in fiscal year 2027, thank you. You were showing here on the spreadsheet in 2027, there's a $787,000 shortfall in the estimate. Is that because we have $787,000 more in projects planned for that year than we are projecting revenue, or is it because there's some other trigger that hasn't fallen that revenue is going to come into there at some point in time?
This one is based off of, I think, the capital outlay section. So if you see the budget in 24, there's $8 million right there being spent in capital in 24. Mm-hmm. Then in 25, it's another 8.6 million. Then the next year it's 4 million, right? That's a huge expenditure. So this is why I wanted to use the capital project planning where we could look at some of those capital projects and just shift them a couple of years down the line, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. That makes sense.
Okay, so now we're going to dive into the capital project stuff. And just so you know, when I did this in the leadership team, I'm actually have my laptop with Excel posted up on the screen, so we can work on this stuff and make adjustments on the fly while it's happening. So we can make the changes right there. So this is how the capital planning sheets I have set up. At the top is revenue in blue, expenditures in red, and then the capital projects are all listed out by projects. and the dollar amounts for each one of those projects. And so this is where we can see that in FY26, the street fund would have a negative fund balance, right? So I'm thinking we would use this sheet in the team meetings to be like, well, let's move some of those capital projects over to 26, and we can just start shuffling capital projects so that we don't end up with the negative fund balance. We can see how spending the money on the capital projects is related to the amount of revenue coming in and the regular expenditures in the department. So it's more of a comprehensive picture for the directors and for the team. Let's see. So the forecasting data, the SDC funds are really crucial because one of the things that clued me in is when people would ask, how are we funding that project? The answer would be, well, it's this SDC funding stream. And I realized that that funding stream was being used in 3 or 4 projects, right? So overused. But because of the way I built the other data, we're going to be able to see to make sure that those SDC funding streams aren't getting appropriated to the same dollars aren't getting spent on 3 different projects, right? So another part of the forecasting that's important is the revenue and expenditure, as I said. The summary data allows us to look at those category totals and the effect on the fund balance, make sure that funds aren't going to be in a negative fund balance in a few years. And then with the capital planning details, it just allows the team to work together to set priorities and move projects around to make sure that there's funding for it all and, just that we have a good plan in place. So my initial insights were that some funds had too much in capital projects over the next few years. Like we looked at the street fund, it was 8 million, 4 million in capital, and then all of a sudden the fund balance is negative, right? That was one of the insights that I had. The other one was the SDC funds. There's 11 revenue accounts in there. The balance of 5 of them is going to be under $10,000 by the end of this year. So we're really using a lot of the SDC funds this year, which is totally fine. But when we have big fund balances and we use those, people might tend to think that there's still going to be a big fund balance a year down the road, which there's not, right? Or there's going to be like $10,000. So we need to take that into account when we're picking which capital projects we're going to do. The sewer combined fund has a very large fund balance that could be used to fund sewer capital projects. It's in a great position. So while I was doing the revenue and expenditure forecasting in the general fund for the parks capital projects, that's when I started seeing that there were trends in there that were concerning me. And they're not park specific trends, but just the general fund in whole. So that's when I transitioned over to looking at the general fund to see what's going on in there and left the capital planning stuff sit. I have it pretty much set up and ready to go. I can train my staff and I'm ready to present it to directors, the leadership team, all that. It can obviously be refined, but it's ready. So now we're going to dive into the general fund. Does anyone have any questions about the capital project stuff before I move on? Okay. So in the general fund, FY23 and 24 had really large beginning fund balances because of the unusual effects in COVID. We got COVID money, 2 tranches of about $2 million each. The other thing that happened were that the capital projects that were approved before COVID hit were not built because COVID shut it down. So not building those capital projects meant we didn't spend the money, which inflated the beginning fund balance, okay? While I was doing the revenue and expenditure forecasting, that's when I realized that there's a lot more expenditures than revenue coming into the city. But because we have this big beginning fund balance, the trend is manageable in the near term, but we do need to develop a plan to address the situation, right? So I used the same forecasting model in the general fund expenditures, looking at 5 years of past data and then projecting forward 5 years. It's a little different in the general fund because the general fund has multiple departments in it, right? I didn't want to fill the sheet with every single line item that's in there. So I just have it broken out by category totals here. There's admin with just personnel and material and services. Those are the two big ones that I just wanted to look at because those are regular operating expenses that occur over and over again. I wanted to look at how much, okay, so PS as a percent of total is how much is personnel services, the total of the whole cost of admin, right? So I wanted to see what that was. I put in the FTE number, the amount of people that were hired there, and then I came up with an average cost for the FTE for each department. And I used the average FTE cost to project the personnel cost in the future. Going forward in the future, I made this model super simple where I didn't increase material and services drastically. It's like a 5% increase. It's like just a percent increase. And I did not add any employees or subtract any employees from any of the FTEs. For revenue, I did a similar type thing where I've got the beginning fund balance that's calculated based off how much you brought in, how much you spent. This is your ending fund balance. And then I have each department that's in the general fund showing up there in the revenue. So I've just projected the revenue forward. In FY27, I just want to let you guys know that I do have the expected $1 million bump in property tax revenue from the URD closing in 26, showing in 27. So here we are. This is showing the resources in the general fund. So the resources are the departmental revenue. That's like the operating revenue that's brought in every year. The transfers in and other sources is overhead that the general fund charges to other departments for the work we do for them. And the beginning fund balance is the dollar amount that we're starting the year with. So if you look at the yellow line, it gets up near $25 million in 24, and that's the visual effect of COVID, of not doing the capital projects and the extra COVID money. And then in 26, you can see that over the next 2 years down to 26, the resources in the general fund are drastically reduced. And that's where my concern is, okay? So I was looking at just the operating part of the general fund. The dollars that come in just to run the general fund, not the beginning fund balance, not SDC transfers that are brought in because of capital projects. I'm basically just looking at the operating revenue and then the operating expenditures. So for operating expenditures, I'm only looking at personnel and material and services, the two things that would have to be happening if we're just running the city. I'm just excluding capital outlay because if things got really bad, I think it would be obvious that capital outlay would be the first thing to get cut. So I'm just leaving this out of the forecasting. So again, I'm just looking at the operating performance here. And if you look at the bottom line over there on the right-hand side, you can see in 23 that there's $1.2 million more in requirements, which are expenditures, than there were in resources that came in to the general fund. And it just continues on like that going forward. So that's concerning. So we're just going to keep digging into this, right? I started looking at personnel because personnel is the largest chunk of the expenditures in the general fund. It's like between 80 to 100%. So I'm looking at personnel, what's going on in personnel. Personnel and costs can increase because we get new employees. The cost of benefits increase. Benefits are added for the employees and pay increases. So I look here just at personnel. I'm looking, the top line is the revenue. This is departmental revenue. This is actual revenue on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side is projected revenue going forward. You can see by the growth numbers that are underneath departmental revenue, we've got like 6.8% is the highest one and 2% is the lowest one. And if we look at the personnel requirements below it, personnel varies a little bit, with the least being a negative 2.4%, but the highest being a 19%. And projecting going forward is more like a 5% growth versus a 3%-ish growth for revenue. So I've also had the actual FTEs down there because the number of employees was something that I was going to explore later. So you can see between 22 and 24 is essentially 10 new employees. Went from 53.9 to 63.7. So a fact, an important fact. I guess also to say that in the 24 budget, almost all of the departmental revenue is required to pay just for personnel costs. So I started looking at personnel in the past because personnel hasn't always been a problem in the general fund, and I wanted to see what was going on there. So looked in prior years, and I noticed when the ratio was like 80 to 85%, that the general fund was able to maintain a healthy fund balance. So personnel cost is in the 80 to 85% range. Everything was fine. So there's the two extreme methods we could use for talking about the general fund is either to add enough revenue to cover the FTE we're at right now, or to reduce the FTE to match the forecasted revenue right now, right? So what does that look like? I looked at the average personnel cost since 2019. Between 2019 and 2023, it was a 9.7% increase, and 24 is a 14% increase over last year. Although I'm going to say that that is an inflated percentage because when I am estimating personnel for the budget, when departments ask for a new person to come in, I have to assume that they're going to get all the benefits paid for a whole family, and that doesn't always happen, right? So like the city pays X amount of dollars for health insurance. I'm just going to make up a number. Say it's 90% of health insurance. Well, if a single person comes in and it's only them getting the health insurance, their health insurance cost is way less than if we're paying the 90% on a family. But conservatively, I have to assume all new employees will have a family, right? So the 24 budget, the personnel cost is slightly inflated because of that fact. So here is option A. This is leave the FTE as is and then figure out what the revenue needs to be. So those numbers that are above the line, the 3.25 million, the 3.5, the 2.9, those are how much more revenue would need to come into the general fund to support the personnel cost with the ratio of 80%. The next option is to restrict the number of FTE based on these forecasts of revenue right now. So you can see that the FTE numbers drop substantially. We're at 63 in this budget, but next year would have to drop to 50 and would, barely climb to 52, 53. The significant increase in personnel costs is going to cause an effect on the general fund. The beginning balance in the general fund this year is 7.8 million. The ending fund balance, if we do everything that's in the adopted budget right now, is going to be 4.5 million. And I'm just going to make it clear that authorizing any of the ARPA expenditures that have come before you is directly going to reduce that $4.5 million fund balance by whatever the cost of those ARPA projects are. And just
Quick question, Eric.
Yeah.
So the ARPA funds, they go away regardless anyway?
Well, we have the ARPA funds, so.
Right, we do now, but within 2 to 3 years, they go away because you have to expend it.
Yes, what we have to do technically is report to the Treasury what we spent the money on.
Right.
And we're pretty much can spend it on whatever we want. And we can say right now today that we already spent all the money. Like if we wanted to go back to last year or this year and pick projects that are already happening, we could tell the Treasury we spent the ARPA money on those projects. We do not have to spend more money to report to the Treasury that we spent the money.
Okay. But as the council's already approved some of the ARPA expenditures.
Right.
Okay, so I assume we're going to continue with those because that's what the council has authorized at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any recommendation or opinion on the ARPA expenditures. I'm just trying to highlight the fact that the ARPA expenditures will reduce the fund balance in the general fund
Okay.
if we go forward with it. But we do have the option to reporting to Treasury that we've already spent money on the projects that we have on the books right now. We can do that if we want. Like,
Okay.
if
I gotta
council-
say, I really wish we had this information a few weeks ago, because I think I would have made different choices on the ARPA funds had we known this going into it. This seems to be pretty important information that we should have had before we allocated those funds.
Counselor President Hensley, I agree. The ARPA allocations were adopted by resolution. They can be altered by resolution as well. This model was still coming together when that resolution was prepared, and I felt the need to get the resolution done
Right.
so that some decisions were being made about that ARPA, those ARPA proceeds. But Eric's right. I mean, we could go back and identify projects that meet the criteria that we've already spent other funds on, and you could revisit that resolution if you want to.
Well, I probably will ask for that, and when we get the mayor up to speed as well. But we've given several $100,000 away to other agencies that we might have made a different choice had we known the pickle we were in.
Well,
And then going back on that doesn't make us good community partners, in my opinion, but we'll have to have a discussion, I think.
correct.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah.
The second question, Eric, on revenue. So did you project in 27, seeing the expenditures coming in from urban renewal? So urban renewal sunsetting in 26, you should be seeing well over $1 million in revenue coming back to the city's fund.
I did put that $1 million of extra revenue in property tax. I did, yes.
Okay, so you projected it in. So that
Yes,
amount
but
could
you asked
actually,
about expenditures, and I don't remember offhand if I did put the extra expenditures for economic development in their departmental. That's a good question.
yeah, well, yeah, but the main point I wanted to make out is it's over $1 million in today's dollars that would come back in from urban renewal once it sunsets.
That's correct.
So in 25, 26, it's going to be well over $1 million because part of the industrial area still is not built up yet. And there's additional revenue that will be coming in from that as well. So we might need to get a better handle on what we project that revenue to be received in 27.
Absolutely agree. Like I said, that's why I kind of said it in the beginning. I just built a simple model, and then as we go forward, we can fine tune it.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
That's part of just introducing this model to you and knowing that this is not the end product, but this is the beginning, and it will take, refinement, and it should be refined over time.
Let's see, the last point on this slide is just to point out that personnel costs increase faster than our revenue increases. Well, I don't know if it's normal. It's the point of my presentation. I'm just going to cut to the end. When we do the budget, the directors provide us a list of money that they want to spend, right? And as the budget committee, we're really focused on expenditures, how much money we're spending. We talk about it, we want to cut it. No one really talks about trying to get more revenue in here. And I think that that needs to be a complementary part of the budget process, is focusing on revenue, getting more revenue in here. While this model is simple and shows a potential problem in the future, it's giving us space to really talk about revenue, coming up with ideas about how to get more revenue into the city, where to get revenue into the city. Like, I know that there are discussions about raising the street maintenance fee for one, right? But the street fund is in great shape. The park maintenance fee would be really helpful to increase that to get more money in the general fund. So that's kind of where this presentation is going to end up, is that I would like to see a lot more cooperation on trying to get more revenue sources in here, grants, franchise fees. Like, that was the last thing we talked about in the leadership meeting, or brainstorming ways to get more revenue in here.
Yeah, and council, before you panic too much with this model, just know that it is fluid, it's dynamic. Finance directors and city administrators have a way of getting in there and tweaking assumptions. And I have worked with this kind of modeling in the past, and I have always presented this to the council, and it always looks like the sky is falling, but we always figure out a way to make sure that the sky doesn't fall. So I just want you to know that, that we will start working with this model, but it is refined, it needs further refinement, and and we manage to balance the budget every year.
Yeah, I wouldn't look at this as like an emergency situation. I look at this more as like, we got a heads up and now we have time to make some good plans to change it. Okay, so revenue challenges. Property tax revenue is the single largest revenue component in the general fund. And the city has little influence over increasing the property tax revenue. Really, the only thing you can do is the URD, because it freezes the tax base, the value of the property goes up, and then they relook at the value, and there's this massive increase in how much property tax can come off of there. If you don't do that, then that 3% property tax frozen, value going up is what's restricting the property tax value in the city. So like in 2015, property tax accounted for 61% of the general fund's revenue. And in 23, it was only 48% of the general fund's revenue. So how important the property tax revenue is to the general fund, I think, is just going to be getting less and less year over year. And that's another reason why I think we need to focus on other revenue streams, getting other revenue streams in the general fund. Okay, so I already brought this up about how the budget process is focused on expenditures, and that I think we could focus more of our attention on revenue generation for everyone, director, city leadership, budget committee, and city council. So this is kind of what's been happening with the property tax. The graph on the top is showing how much of a factor the property tax was to all of the general fund's revenues year over year. And you can kind of see it's just slowly been dropping. And the bottom graph is total expenditures in the gold line are obviously going up at a quicker rate than the property tax revenue. And because the property tax revenue is the biggest source of revenue, I think this is really the key right here. This is the key slide to look at, that expenditures are going up faster than property tax revenue. So we got to work together to get more revenue in the city. So this is the last slide. Yeah, is it? So the company shortfall can be addressed using a combination of expenditure reduction and revenue increases. Expenditure only focused is good for short term, but because costs seem to rise faster than revenue, it kind of leads you into a vicious cycle of having to cut more and more every year if you're not going to try to add revenue. Revenue generation may demand a longer term implementation. You got to increase fees, adopt new fees, create new revenue sources, and that takes time. There's political issues involved in it. And it will take the cooperation, consideration, understanding, and teamwork by all of the city's leadership to impose these financial requirements onto the citizens of Canby. This process is going to take time, but I think it's really critical that the city works on trying to get more revenue. And obviously, a blended approach is going to create the most benefit over time. And that's it. Questions? Yes,
I have a couple of questions and some thoughts on all of this.
turn your mic on.
I have some questions and general thoughts on this whole topic as we have now finished it.
Okay.
In those, in that general fund money, does that include the reserves, or are the reserves a separate number elsewhere that are not included in that, like $4.5 million? That's also the reserves.
That is the reserves, yeah.
Okay. What is this? How do we make this? One of the things that I was curious about is this forecasting model and everything that goes with it. Is there a way that we can make this standard operating procedure within the city that is required, regardless of who fills what position and who comes and goes? So that way, we know that we know that the one thing that's constant in the world is change, and that will continue in the city. Is there a way of making this so that it is required regardless? Because my fear is that Eric has put all of this work into this plan, and then a different finance director, maybe not the next one, but the one after, could come in and say, well, I'm not using this. I have my own thing. Out it goes, and then we end up back in the situation that we're in. How do we set future councils and city folk up for success by making something like this a requirement? is a thought.
My thought is that that absolutely a city should be doing this. Whether it's this model or another finance director comes in and has a different way of doing it, because everybody's going to be kind of comfortable with their way of doing it, is again going to be dependent on that individual. The important point is that this should be done year after year after year. My recommendation is that it is presented as part of the goal-setting session so that the council is cognizant of its financial conditions as it sets its goals for the year.
Okay.
So one of the questions that I was going to ask the council was that that mid-year budget review that you're talking about, Councillor Patton, this could be presented to the budget committee at that mid-year budget review.
Okay.
In the future, if you want to involve the budget committee year after year, that's the council prerogative. But the council should be presented with this kind of financial modeling at least once a year.
Okay, excellent. The next thing I have on my list is, it was brought up about the URD sunsetting. I'm sorry. I think we have spent that URD money twice over. And based on the percentages of costs and how they have trended for the last several years, I don't see that going back down to 3 to 5%. And so that dollar that we are taking in is not going to keep pace with what we are having to pay for the same services. And that sort of brings me to this epiphany that I had the other day in chatting with citizens and stuff, is that, and this is not just the city of Canby, this to me, it seems like it's the whole state of Oregon. The citizens want city services that are the equivalent of a Cadillac, but they are only willing to pay for city services that are the equivalent of a Prius. And how we get them to understand that you cannot have that, you cannot walk into a car dealership and say, I want a Cadillac, and I'm only going to give you the money for a Prius, they're going to throw you out. So we have to figure out how we're going to do this well, so the citizens don't come out here with pitchforks and torches and burn this place to the ground. That's something that has stuck into my head a little bit.
And all cities are, you're right, all cities are dealing with this issue.
It's a mess. This capital project team, something that I wrote down here was, would it make sense, and this is just a thought, to have a member of council and/or a citizen member of the budget committee serve as an individual on that group? Even if it's just a silent person who is there to kind of watch over things, so that way, if something happens, there's somebody that has, some inside information about what's going on there and, spreading that tribal knowledge out to other groups that aren't just in the city is something that came to mind. The last thing was that, there was a question about, us not seeing the council, not seeing this information and stuff. And I would just use what we're going through as a cautionary tale to this council and councils that will come before us. This is what happens when you burn everything to the ground. When you burn things to the ground and you have a mass exodus of city leadership, these are the cracks that then open up that things fall through. And I think COVID had a big play in this because there was a lot of stuff that went on through that. But it's just something for folks to keep in mind moving forward. So that is the things that came to mind for me in listening to this.
Any other questions from council?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
First, more of a statement first, Eric. Thank you for the work on this.
Absolutely.
And this is exactly what I was looking for in our very first budget presentation, because as council, we're responsible for accountability, and especially on finance. And we didn't have this information. So I applaud that. I have all the faith in the world that our department heads and our leadership team can address this issue.
Absolutely.
I don't think we need to. We just need to know that we have a balanced budget and where the money's going to in the projects. I have all the faith that our leadership team will take care of that for us. So I think we're headed in the right direction with this. I think it's good information. This is exactly what I was looking for as far as accountability of our revenues moving forward and stuff, because I have to deal with that every year, and projecting out 2 to 3 years out to make sure when we put an employee on, we can guarantee that employee a job, for the sustainability of that person's career. Otherwise, let's not bring them on, because that's not fair to the employees. So I have all the faith in the world that the leadership team will get this balanced out. I also think that bringing this up in our mid-year reviews to the budget committee and getting the budget committee's education around this as well, too, in preparation for the next budget session with our budget committee. So thank you.
Yeah, Mike, I just want to address the fact that I have been so busy trying to get caught up since the day I got here that July was literally the first I've been able to do this forecasting stuff, which this is the stuff that really interests me, right? And I totally agree that the mid-year budget review is a good time to do this, because this information will be shared before the budget goes to the budget committee, and will be aware, the city council will be aware of it before they adopt the budget, so.
I have
Any other questions?
a couple questions. On your projected revenue table that you had up, it was like this last slide or the second to the last slide. I don't know how quickly you can go there. And Councilor Davis was touching on this, but it seems to me that the sunset of the URD ought to reflect an increase in revenue, and it doesn't, and I'm not sure. Yeah, I think if we look at that last, well, so right here, if we look at the property tax revenue, oh, I see, it ends in 2023.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
That might answer my question then.
I bet it does.
Okay. Yeah. I wouldn't mind seeing what it looks like compared to the red line on the bottom, if we
Yeah.
could project that out in the future,
Gotcha.
because that should help a little bit.
That's right.
the other thing, so Councilor Padden says perhaps a budget committee member or city councilor. I'm a little reluctant for a city councilor. My 3-year anniversary on council comes up in January, and I'm the second most senior person here now. So I'm not sure that's the kind of stability we're looking for. What was the makeup that you would envision?
For the team?
Yeah, for that kind of team.
The city administrator, the city attorney, all the directors, maybe the director's second-hand, right-hand person. I wouldn't be opposed to a council member or a budget committee person being in there to view, but mostly just having a team in there, especially all the directors, because they're really in charge of their budgets, so. And it just builds like a cooperative atmosphere, right?
Thank you. Councilor Stearns, did you have anything?
Just a few thoughts. One, I do like the idea of sort of brainstorming in maybe a work session or something where we could go over the costs and the revenue opportunities. I feel like there could be some benefit to have community input. So if, for example, if we want to raise a revenue, obviously that means somebody's going to have to pay more money than they're already paying. And it's a good idea to have the stakeholders that might be doing that paying to come in and give the input, because one thing for us to make a decision and says, you shall pay more money. It's another thing to say, hey, what can we do? We need this money for this per X, Y, and Z. So I think it's really important, we're talking about raising revenues, that we get citizen input involved and let people give their worries, because in essence, if people aren't consenting to the revenue, it's much harder to enforce, and we're not talking about everybody agreeing, but a large portion agreement. So that's one of the things that come to mind, is the importance of getting input from the not just for a yes or no vote, but for input ideas. And the other thing, I do like the idea of having people citizens sit on some of these planning things. One of the big obstacles is that very few people, I think, understand funds-based accounting versus profit and loss-based accounting, and there's some education that needs to happen to avoid a lot of confusion on that aspect. But I think a lot of the people outside the traditional funds-based nonprofit accounting can have ideas on saving money, even though a little education on funds-based might help people out. So those are the few of my thoughts. I don't know if that makes any sense or not, or that's just babbling.
No, Counselor,
Councilor Stearns.
it does make a lot of sense. And the beauty of, having a tool like this, whether it's this tool or, again, some other finance director comes in and has an equally robust tool, is that you can use it in a public environment. You can show, if we increase this revenue or we, reappropriate these dollars over here, or whatever the council decides to do, you can literally show. And when this thing is operating from the power, or from, God, I wanted to say locust, Excel, thank you, shows my age. That, you can literally show the fund balance, that bend in the curves, and you can see what effect, let's increase this, or let's decrease this, or let's put this money over there, and you can see the effect immediately. So it's a very good community education tool.
Thank you. And Councilor Maldonado, did you have anything to add or a question before we wrap this up?
I did not. Thank you.
Okay. Very good.
Council President Hensley,
Yes.
real quick, I just want to clarify something. My fourth grade teacher had a sign over her chalkboard that said, make sure your brain is in gear before engaging your mouth. So I'm going to use this principle right now. When I was talking about people burning the city to the ground, I used the word you. I was not specifically referring to any one person. I was using you in the most generalist of terms. So I don't want anybody to take offense to that. I just want to clarify that statement. So thank you,
Okay.
Mrs. Peterson.
That is much appreciated. Thank you, Councilor Patton. Okay, well, that, unless Eileen has anything else to add, I think that brings us to the end of our work session. And we are going to take a 5-minute break and resume at 7:02.
Okay.
Thank
Recording in progress.
Oh, Counselor Hensley, you are muted. Council President Hensley, you're muted.
That was my ode to Jason Padden. Welcome, Canby, to the City Council meeting for October 4th, 2023. If you will please rise for the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Father God, I thank you for the leaders before us, that please be with us to make good decisions and offer us good discernment in guiding things and policy making for this wonderful community that we are so blessed to enjoy. I thank you for our first responders, and please keep them out of harm's way. And thank you for all the many, many blessings that this community brings us. In Jesus' name, amen. So Davis, will you lead us since you're in the room?
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We did just return from a work session for those just joining us. We had a discussion regarding general fund revenue and expenditure forecasting. So thank you again to Eric, our finance director, for putting that tool together and presenting it tonight. We'll be having further discussions about that, I'm certain, in the future. Okay, first up on the agenda, we have a new police officer to welcome.
Good evening, Council.
Hello, Chief Trout.
Thank you, Councilor Hensley. Tonight, we have a special event of a swearing in of a brand new police officer. What a crowd. Thank you for coming to this event. So I'm going to call our new officer, Mark Y, up here. I'm going to say a few things. I need to be near the mic, according to says, so.
Sounds good.
So you can hear me.
That makes sense.
So Mark Y is our newest police officer. He just started a couple weeks ago on September 18th. He's currently in our field training phase, which he's assigned to a field training officer to learn the procedure and learn our city and stuff like that. So he's with his first coach right now, and he goes through 3 other coaches. So a little bit about Mark. He was born in the Philippines, and he moved to Oregon at a young age with his family, and I think some of his family is here. He grew up in the city of Tigard and graduated from Tigard High School. He attended Pacific University and received his bachelor's degree in early education. I believe he wanted to be a teacher at one point. Maybe.
Being a cop's a little bit cooler.
So he did try a few jobs in education in the medical field, and he was drawn to law enforcement, and he was hired by the Hubbard Police Department. If you recall, we've hired a couple other officers from the Hubbard Police Department, so it's been a good training ground for us. So he's been there about 2 years. I need a note. So right now, if you're a lateral officer in good standing, like Officer Y, you could pretty much pick any agency you want in the state of Oregon. And we are very fortunate. Mark applied for us, and we chose Mark to be part of our team. So thank you. So one of his aspirations as a police officer is to be a school resource officer. He wants to foster positive relationships among law enforcement, teachers, and youth, as well as promote a positive climate. Mark told me one of the reasons he chose to apply at Canby was because of its community support. We have great community support and council support for our law enforcement and first responders. And he felt that our department appreciates its staff and trains them well. In his free time, he enjoys hiking, going to the gym, watching movies, and spending time with family. So one warning, if he ever asks you to go for a hike, be careful, because one of his most favorite hikes was a 26-mile hike up in Leavenworth, Washington. So be warned. Mark is married and has a 1.5-year-old beautiful daughter that I'll let him introduce. Go ahead, introduce your wife, family, and anybody else here.
So here's my daughter, Sophia. She loves being the center of attention here. And here's my lovely wife, lovely and beautiful wife, Carla. She's a teacher at North Marion. And here are my parents.
Mark's mom
Yeah.
and dad.
And And I got 3 younger brothers in the back, and my best friend Jonathan back there.
I'm the oldest still.
All right, at this time, I'm going to call Judge Graft up for the actual swearing in.
We both have to be close to the mic.
Okay, sounds
I get
good.
instructions on this every time.
I'll try to talk loud too.
Okay, raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me. I state your name,
I, Mark Y.,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and uphold the constitutions
that I will support and uphold the Constitution
of the United States and the state of Oregon,
of the United States and the state of Oregon,
the charter and ordinances of the city of Canby,
the charter and ordinances of the city of Canby,
remaining in compliance with professional standards
remaining in compliance of professional standards
established by the department's mission,
established by the department's mission,
values, and professional code of ethics,
values, and professional ethics,
department policies and directives,
department policies and directives,
and will faithfully perform the duties
and will faithfully perform the duties.
of the police officer for the city of Canby, Oregon.
Can you repeat that, please?
Hard to swallow.
Yeah.
Faithfully perform the duties of police officer for the city of Canby, Oregon.
Faithfully, a little slow on that. I might have to read it. Faithfully perform the duties of the police officer for the city of Canby
To the best of my
to
ability.
the best of my abilities.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
You sign there, and the chief signs there.
Okay, one last thing. Who would you like to have pin your badge?
My wife.
Awesome.
Sophie, you want to be up here? Sophie, come down. Maybe a little hard. There you go. Take a picture. There you go. Great. Thank you.
Welcome to the city.
So welcome to the City of Canby, Officer Y.
Thank you, Chief.
Is there anything you would like to say?
I just wanted to say thank you, everyone here, for the opportunity to work for the city of Canby. I've heard many great things, and I wanted to be a part of it. If you ever see me on the side of the road, just wave me down. I love answering questions about myself or anything about the job. And again, thank you very much for the opportunity and the support.
Awesome.
Thank you, Officer Y, and welcome to Canby. I'll have to be one of those people that wave you down so I can shake your hand since I'm not in the room tonight. All right, thank you, Chief Tro. Next on the agenda is the introduction of new employees, and that would be Ms. Eileen Stein, please.
We're going to let Chief Tro go first, and then I have an introduction as well.
Thank you. Since I'm up here, I'm going to introduce our newest record specialist. I'm super excited to introduce Kelly Bartholomew. If you want to come up here, Kelly. So Kelly started with us back in June 20th, so she's been here a few months and she's hit the ground running. During the last 3 months, she's learned a lot about police records and has been a great addition to our team. Police records is the backbone of our department. We could not do our service without them, so they're a very important piece of our department. A little bit about Kelly. Kelly's an Oregon native and a Canby resident for the last 8 years. For the last 10 years, she has worked in the medical field as an office manager. Kelly is married to her high school sweetheart, Mark, who I believe is here, for 33 years. They have 2 adult children and a son-in-law. In her spare time, she enjoys walking and puzzles, but mostly spending time with family and friends. She is thrilled to be supporting law enforcement in her community, and we are thrilled to have her. So welcome, Kelly. I told her she didn't have to say anything, so.
So, council, as you know, today was, where are you? Oh, okay. Today was our library director, Danny Smith's last day, and Marissa Eli is on our library staff already. She's the library supervisor until today, and she is the interim library director. And we will try her out, and we will see if she's going to be the permanent director. But she is the interim library director for the time being. So do you want to say a few words?
I do.
Welcome, Marissa.
Thank you.
So thank you.
I actually volunteered to say something, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So good evening, council and the Canby community. My name is Marissa Ely, and I am both excited and incredibly humbled to be the new interim library director for the Canby Public Library. I am hoping many of you already recognize me. I hold both a master's in library and information science and a doctorate in educational leadership. I have also held several positions in this library since 2017, so I feel very prepared to be in this role. We, as a library and a city, have gone through a lot of change this year, and we have several new library staff members that have come on in recent months. Both myself and our new staff group are ready to continue moving this library in the direction that the growing Canby community deserves. We're looking to hopefully expand or shift our hours, create a new space for Canby tweens, make our collections more robust, organized, and easier to find, continue providing unique programming for all ages, reach more of the community that may not know about the myriad of services we do provide, and of course, apply for any and all library-related grants. We're also hoping to get community feedback so we can be sure we're meeting the needs of the city. I personally believe that moving forward is only possible with a collective vision that we all help co-create. I don't want to take up too much of your time here this evening, but I want this community and its leadership to know that I will put in the work and I will be visible and available in this new position. This library is such a special place, and myself and the library staff are ready to show you what we can do and how much we care. Thank you for all your support thus far, and I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen, and thank you, Marissa. On the agenda, we have citizen input and community announcements. I see no one online, but we do have a card from Carol Palmer. Carol?
Thank you.
I think I'm on.
Yep, we can hear
Carol
you.
Palmer, Canby, Oregon. I live on North Ponderosa Street, and I am here to talk a little bit about the DeMuro Award. And the first thing I want to do is I want to thank our city administrator and our economic development director, Eileen and Jamie, for attending the event. The actual DeMuro Award event occurred on the 22nd, on Friday, and it was great to have someone there officially representing the city. Now, I wasn't able to attend, but I understand the event was very nice, and so I'm here to talk a little bit about trying to bring the party back to Canby and doing a little recognition here as well. It seems appropriate to toot our horn and talk about how great it is to have this fabulous historic building that Hanlon has done such a great job restoring in our community and in our downtown. So I've been coordinating with Tyler Nizer and also with Belinda Goody and Mary Hanlon, and we have October 19th, so I'm here to tell all of you to invite you now. October 19th at 4 o'clock at City Hall, there will be, rather than a ribbon cutting, it's going to be an unveiling of the plaque, which I think is going to have to be placed inside the building, but we'll try and put it in a place where there's going to be some traffic. I think that's Mary's plan. There will be a few speakers, and we would love to have someone from the City Council available, and I think Tyler's probably going to be coming around and asking some of you to volunteer to maybe say a few words. And I know we'll also have some folks there from Restore Oregon from their board. So please join us on the 19th at City Hall, the historic City Hall, at 4 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
You bet.
Okay, Maya, have we got any new ones? I don't see anybody on the list.
Yeah, we do have one more.
We do.
Okay.
I gotta go.
Yeah,
Who gets it?
give it to me. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, give that to Mark.
You
There
can
you
sit
go.
right there.
sorry, this is my first time.
No problem.
All right, well, tell us who you are and why you're here.
Don't boss me around. I'm Daniel Afsharjak. I am here today because I coach soccer in the city of Canby. And it's been a little bit stressful to do that for the past couple of years. Most stressful this year because the fields that we're using are in Caris. And then also now we're not just doing Caris, but now we're doing North Marion also. And as a resident of Canby, with so many good fields around here, it would be nice if we could use the facilities or whatever, the field space that's in town. In addition to that, it would be great if there was a better facility for soccer itself. There have been challenges with molehills. Right now in Caris, the fields have a gnarly slope to them, which makes it difficult for playing soccer, especially for young kids. And I just feel that the investment in our kids is one of the best investments we can make, especially for our active living lifestyle. And soccer is very near and dear to me, and there's a lot of kids that really want to play, not just fall soccer, but spring soccer. And I'd really like the community to get behind that. And it'd be great if there was a more cohesive movement around sports in general for kids in the area. A lot of times there's frustration around basketball overlapping with baseball or soccer or swimming or what have you. Parents are frustrated, and I hear a lot about that. I would like to participate more in this. I'd like to figure out what opportunities there are to improve. I'd also like soccer season to be more than 5 games. I'd like to start soccer practice a couple weeks before our first soccer game rather than the day before our first soccer game. I'd like to get our jerseys a week before pictures instead of the night before pictures. I'd like to invest in this. I'd like to know how I can do that. And I'd like to figure out how we can support the community in having better experience for sports. That's it.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
Sure.
And we did share a telephone conversation, and I did invite him to come to the city council to let the city council know what he told me. And I would strongly encourage you to come and talk to the Park and Rec committee as well and be involved with us.
I would love to.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Any questions for me?
Thanks for coming.
No.
Of course. Ooh, one last plug. We have the best outdoor pickleball court around. We don't have anything indoor. So that place is packed all the time with kids, adults. If there's momentum to carry that forward, I called the fairgrounds. I was like, you guys should do that in the new facility, but I don't know if they're going to. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Okay, next up, we have the consent agenda.
Council President Hensley?
Yes?
I move to, I haven't done this before, so I'm going to wing it here. I move to approve the consent agenda consisting of the August 2nd, 2023 work session and city council meeting minutes, appointment of Jake Hill, right? Jake Hill to the Canby Utility Board effective October 9th, 2023, with the term ending February 29th of 2024, and reappointment of member Scott Sassy to the Canby Budget Committee with a term ending on June 30th of 2025.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilor Patton and seconded by Councilor Davis, I believe it was, to approve the consent agenda, which consists of the meeting minutes for August 2nd, 2023 City Council and work session meetings, appointment of Jake Hill to the Canby Utility Board effective October 9th, 2023 with a term ending February 29, 2024, and the reappointment of member Scott Sassy to the Canby Budget Committee with the term ending June 30th, 2025. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes 6-0. Next up, we have ordinances, resolutions and ordinances. We have ordinance number 1612. This is for first reading. So Eileen?
So for this item, I would like to call Jerry Nelzine to the table and have Jerry explain this ordinance.
Hello, Council. Jerry Nelson, Public Works Director. This is a ordinance that we would like you to approve for custodial services throughout the City of Canby, 5 of our 5 buildings that we own. And we had a long-term custodial service that we used for a while. That went away. We tried in-house. We had problems finding the employees to maintain that. So we hired went out for 3 bids, did a 6-month contract with the current contractor we have now. And in the meantime, while we did that, we went out for RFP for custodial services. And we had a scoring team. We had 2 applicants, 2 people apply for the custodial deal. We had a scoring team, and they selected this company, and we'd like you to approve this ordinance for a year, 1-year service of custodial services. Is there any questions?
Are these for, I guess, this building? Which other?
It would be this building, Public Works, wastewater, the police station, transit building. Did I name 5? It's all 5 of our city buildings. Okay. The only buildings that they wouldn't be doing would be the swim center and the adult center.
What about the bathrooms at the parks?
The bathroom at the parks are maintained and cleaned by our Parks Department.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for Jerry? Okay, seeing none, I will take a motion.
I move to approve ordinance number 1612, authorizing the interim city manager to execute a contract with MSNW Group LLC in the amount of $144,960 per year for custodial services for the city of Canby to a second reading October 18th.
Second.
I was moved by Councilor Bangs and seconded by Councilor Maldonado to approve ordinance number 1612, an ordinance authorizing the interim city administrator to execute a contract with MSNW Group LLC in the amount of $144,960 for custodial services for the city of Canby. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Okay, Eileen, another first reading. We have ordinance number 1613.
Which is an ordinance authorizing this interim city administrator to execute a contract with Jarrett Walker and Associates to provide an update to the transit master plan, and Todd is here for this item.
Okay, Todd?
Okay. My name is Todd Wood, the Transit Director. Transit Master Plan, just like all the plans in the city, is the guiding document for the Transit Department. It is the plan that tells us what we need to do going into the future. Our plan lasts about 5 years. The last one was done in 2017. We use the plan not just to guide us, but also every time I apply for a grant, the state wants to know what plan it falls in the city's documents. So it's very important for us to apply for future grants. So we went out for RFP. Well, first of all, last year I applied for a grant for it. So we were awarded a STIF grant for it, which will pay for 80% of our transit master plan. We went out for RFP. We got 3 bids back. We scored it, and we came up with Jared Walker and Associates to do the transit master plan. They are the same folks that did the last transit master plan, so it's fortuitous as they know our system very well. Expect it to take about 10 months and cost about $200,000, of which we'll pay about $39,000, and the grant will cover the other $159,000, give or take.
Okay, any questions for Todd?
Yes, sir.
President Hensley, I'll make a motion.
Go ahead, Councilor Davis.
Okay, proposed motion, I move to approve ordinance 1613, an ordinance authorizing the interim city administrator to execute a contract with Jared Walker and Associates in the amount of $199,809 to provide an update to the transit master plan and move it to second reading on October 18th, 2023.
And was that Councilor Maldonado?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, that's okay. It's been moved by Councilor Davis and seconded by Councilor Maldonado to approve ordinance number 1613, an ordinance authorizing the interim city administrator to execute a contract with Jarrett Walker and Associates in the amount of $199,809 to provide an update to the transit master plan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes 6-0.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to the end of the agenda of resolutions and ordinances. We come to old business. Eileen, do we have any updates on the city administrator and city attorney recruitment processes?
I did want to discuss the city administrator or city attorney recruitment, but I didn't know if there were any updates on the city. Okay. So now is the moment in time. I recall, Council, you had a discussion probably a couple months back now about moving ahead with the city attorney recruitment once you got to the point of having finalists, which for the city administrator, which I understand is imminent. So, so the question is, do you want us to begin the recruitment for the city attorney now?
I believe
Thank you,
that would be a
Eileen.
good step.
I'm thinking that I would like to wait. And the reason is because things are seemingly moving smoothly with the services we have currently, as I understood it from my conversation with Eileen recently. And I would like to punt this probably at least 3 more months, if not 6. And the reason is I would like to have enough data to do a good cost analysis on bringing on a full-time person with their salary and benefits and PERS, et cetera, versus how much it's costing us for the exact amount of services that we're using, whether we keep this current firm or go with another. But if we have 6 months with the data, we can do a good comparison. And I think that that would be the best way to make the best decision for Canby going forward. Any other thoughts? Councilor Davis?
I have a thought on that. That is not
My
what,
screen didn't switch yet.
that is not what we agreed upon. When we had a conversation as a council, it was decided it was recommended as a group that we would phase these in. It has been, if memory serves me correctly, when a cost analysis was done of whether we contract this city attorney work out or we hire a full-time person in, it is more expensive to have the work contracted out than it is to do it in-house. I am a firm believer that we made it clear that we need to phase these in, and I want to see that process continued. So I am for, unless there is some extenuating circumstances that I am not aware of that is impacting city staff and the firm that's doing this recruitment, I want to see the phase start of searching for the city attorney.
Councilor Banks?
Thank you. I am also in favor of moving forward now with the search for the city attorney. I believe it is considerably more expensive for the same legal services that we had before to have that with the contracted services we're going with now. I'm pretty sure that came up when we were discussing it the first time. So, for cost alone, I think we should move forward and find our new city attorney.
Councilor Davis, are you just resting your hand or are you raising your hand?
Resting. I was elevated.
Eileen, in our discussion, you did say we would need about 6 months with the data to actually make a cost analysis that was actually accurate. Is that not how am I recalling our conversation incorrectly?
No, we did have that conversation. 3 to 6 months of data would certainly tell how much we are spending on outside council services. So, but Council President Hensley, Councilor Stearns had his hand up, so we'll let him speak.
Councilor Stearns.
Sorry, I don't know if you can see my hand or not, but yeah, I think.
Well, you can use the raise hand function on your Zoom, too.
Oh, is I supposed to? Okay.
That helps. That
Trying to
helps
learn
me, because I can't.
how to do the job.
The cameras aren't always on you.
Oh, okay.
We're not on Zoom.
Okay. My question is, I guess there has been a discussion about costs, and it was done prior to me being appointed, so I was wondering if it's possible that I see the data that was maybe presented earlier so I could form an intelligent opinion. Otherwise, I'll have to give an unintelligent opinion, which we probably don't need. So.
I'm not aware that there has been an analysis. There certainly has not been an analysis since I've been here, since the middle of May. So if there was an analysis that was done, it would have been done before that. And I could switch, I could research that and find out.
Okay, 'cause it sounds like there was some sort of cost discussion earlier, and so being completely unaware of the money either way, I would like to see that. I can imagine lots of benefits for having somebody in-house, and I can imagine a lot of benefits for having contracted it out, but it's just all in my imagination at this point.
Sure.
And I don't recall any numbers being presented to us. It's been kind of a lot of assumptions.
I do have my hand up now.
Okay, Councilor Davis.
Thank you. After our budget presentation that we had today, and where we're just starting to do some more forecasting and stuff, and not exactly, I'm sorry, I don't totally understand what it is the city attorney will be doing for us now that he's not doing court, I believe. And there's some other functions that the old city attorney did do that we don't do now. So if, I'd like to maybe move this to, I'm not opposed to it, but I'd like to move it to a work session so that we can actually see the data of exactly what it is the position's going to be doing. And then the other part is we're going to have our mid-year budget review here soon too, to where we can get a better idea of how we're doing in the budget. I'd like to see this move to a work session for further information.
I think that's a great idea. Councilor Maldonado, your thoughts?
I can go either way on it. We did initially agree that this was the route we wanted to go, where once we were at the halfway point with the city administrator, we would move ahead with the city attorney. However, I would definitely like to see numbers. I know we were initially informed that it would be a greater cost to outsource than have in-house. But I would like to see numbers so I can be definitively informed. And I would not be opposed to putting it into a work session.
Okay.
Council President Hensley, I have my hand raised again.
And the camera panned away just in time. I see that. Thank you. Councilor Patton, go ahead.
I would say that if we would like to, if it is a majority of council's will to wish to do another work session on this, I would like to see, if we're going to do a cost, and I am 100% positive that we were presented with some sort of numbers that said that moving forward with a city attorney, rather than contracting the work out, was going to be advantageous for the city. I was not dreaming when I heard that talked about. It was a thing.
No.
Second of all, if we do this, then what I want to see overlaid in those numbers is what sort of questions we are normally asking an internal city attorney on a day-to-day basis that we may not be asking a contract city attorney because we don't want to worry about spending that cost. I think that for the police folks, they were constantly in communication with our city attorney to cover their butts so that this city would not get involved in a bunch of lawsuits. And I would hate to see us pinch a penny, on trying to save city attorney services by not bringing it in-house, and then have our Tookuses sued by somebody because the police or somebody in this city has made a poor decision or said something out of turn, and then our insurance rates go up. So if we're going to do that cost analysis, it needs to include that.
And I would agree with that, Councilor Patton. That was one element that I did discuss with Eileen as well. So if it pleases the rest of my colleagues, I would like to talk to the mayor about scheduling a work session, and I do mean sooner rather than later.
Councilor Stern has his hand up.
Councilor Stern?
I was wondering, I'm glad you brought that up, Councilor Patton. Maybe the police chief himself can talk about whether or not his legal, since he's here, if he feels hesitant to talk to the council, to our city council, not council, but city attorney, I call him, because it's contracted out versus an in-house. Or maybe that could be prepared for a different, so I don't want to put you on the spot.
Chief, do you want to speak on that?
But I just thought, since you asked the question and you're
If
here.
it's something important, I have no problem calling our contracted counsel out, right?
Okay.
You do, if you have someone in-house, you'll call them more just on little things where I'm not gonna make that call. But on something important for sure, no problem calling.
So, but you do see there is a reduction in legal communication because it's outsourced. So that's something I want to, that is one of the problems with outside.
At least for me.
Contractors is, I know people are hesitant sometimes to call. I know I get that myself through my career. People sometimes are hesitant to call me when I start the clock running. But like I say, as far as the pros and cons, that needs to be taken into consideration.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I would just like to preface this by saying that I find that at least from what I can see, what services we have received from David and other folks are not lacking. It's just, I think that, skewer me for trying to hang my hat on tradition, but even when I was originally on city council, the city has had a city attorney. Cities, from what I understand, cities of our size and larger, or our size and smaller, have in-house city attorneys. And so I think that makes sense.
You're muted, Tracy.
Okay, well, first I want to credit Councilor Patton for remembering his mic, and apparently it's an affliction that's been passed on to me. I apologize, everyone. I do hear many of us wanting to see numbers, so is there room on the next meeting's agenda to add a work session? Maya?
No.
Okay, how about the first one? Well, yeah, it's true. We have to get those interviews done. So what about the first one in November possibly? That would give you a little more time to get data.
Yeah, so that agenda, we have scheduled an update on the comprehensive plan again. So we're going to have to kind of juggle some priorities for work session time. So,
well, I would not be opposed to an additional Wednesday. This is an important subject.
I would concur with Council President Hensley. I think we are starting to get a logjam here, and I think it is time that we kind of look at our calendars and figure out if there's I would not be opposed to sorting out an alternate time. The problem I find with these work sessions is that the topics that we are wanting to discuss are not, or they're meaty topics, and we shove it into an hour and we don't really get a chance to flesh it out. And I think this and maybe some other things, we need to have like a work session palooza some evening where it's like 2-3 hours of just doing these sort of things. And I remember back when I was originally on council, we did not do work sessions at this dais. We did work sessions around a table, and it was more of a conversation rather than a presentation. Mm-hmm. And I think that this council is missing that collaboration. And I would like to see something like that brought back.
Yeah, I remember when we had work sessions in the conference room. I think they were more productive, to be honest. So let's work with the mayor on a day that's not necessarily a council day. As Councilor Patton has a very good point that this is not necessarily going to be a 1-hour discussion. So can you work with the mayor on scheduling a time?
I absolutely will, yes.
Okay, thank you, appreciate
Yeah,
that.
And you do have a lot on your plate. So.
Okay, and councilor comments and liaison reports. I will start with Councilor Patton.
This might shock you all, but I really don't have anything tonight. My committees really haven't met. This might disgust people, but I am hot and heavy into preparing my house for Christmas, as well as Halloween, so I'm preoccupied. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Maldonado.
Christmas already, really?
I know.
Well,
What about
Christmas
Thanksgiving?
trees, I gotta start this
Gosh.
early. It's a one-man show.
I have nothing to report as mine have not met as well.
Okay, and likewise, we got C4 is tomorrow and Traffic Safety Council next week, so I don't really have much either. There is First Thursday, though, in town, so I will announce that since I did not see Jamie in the room. And we'll go on to Councilor Davis.
Thank you. Fire department-wise, the fire board, we swore in Division Chief Matt Dale to Deputy Fire Chief, so second in charge of the fire department. And the board has made a conditional job offer to a gentleman for the fire chief's position, who is now in background review, and that's going to take 4 to 6 weeks to go through the background review. And we'll wait until that time to make the announcement for the gentleman that they made the conditional job offer for. Park and Rec, we haven't met. I gave a lengthy report at the last city council meeting on Park and Rec. Biggest item we have there is moving forward on sports fields and working with COGIO, trying to find a location of the sports fields. And I believe, Eileen, we asked for a report from Jamie on the hotel as well as the sports field, if we could get that update on how we're doing on locations for those.
Yeah, that's one of those backlog items. I'm looking for time to
Awesome.
have
Thank
an
you.
executive session. It's possible that we might be able to do that as soon as October 18th if the business items on the council's agenda kind of remain, like if this is all we did is the second readings, we might be able to fit it in next week or the next regular meeting.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jim. And it was an honor to be part of that interview panel process, so thank you for inviting me to take part in that day. Councilor Banks.
Thank you. The big news with the library is the change from our director to our new interim director, which we saw tonight. It was with a lot of enthusiasm that I went into the meeting of the Heritage and Landmarks Commission. Haven't met since July. That meeting was Monday. I had it on my calendar for Tuesday, so I missed it, much to my grave disappointment. But Tyler Nizer was kind enough to tell me that they're putting an RFP out. The city is for reconnaissance level survey, which is a survey of properties in the city. And there's an active effort to recruit members for the city's Heritage and Landmarks Commission. If any of y'all are out there interested in looking at serving for your community, we could use you.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Banks. And finally, last but not least, Councilor Stearns, do you have a liaison report?
Yeah, I was asked to be liaison to the Canby School Board. I went to their meeting. I don't remember anything from that meeting that I thought that needed to be addressed here. Next meeting, I think I'll introduce myself, but they have a little harder time doing public comment there than here. We did have a transit board meeting last week, and we talked. There wasn't a a quorum there, so no business took place, but I got myself educated a lot of the transit issues. One thing I wanted to bring up to the council that may be something that put on our radar is the Canby area transit tax happens to have the same initials as an Oregon tax that was recently passed. They call it the Oregon Cat Tax, and then we have the Canby Cat Tax, which causes some confusion among some of my clients. And so something to consider, we might want to change the name of the tax to something, I don't think the state of Oregon will want to change the name of their cat tax to something different, although we had ours first. But something to just think about.
Good points. Thank you, Councilor Stearns. That brings us to the interim city administrator business and staff report. Eileen?
Okay, I have a few items to discuss tonight. The first is turning our attention to next year's goals. Started to reach out to the person who conducted the goal-setting session this year. She's already booked for January, so I reserved the date. Last year, you had a goal-setting session on a Friday, so I reserved Friday, February 9th of 2024 for that date. So we can lock her in if that works for your calendars. So
February 9th.
February 9th, yeah.
We have to go back to go forward.
I have a conflict that day, actually.
Uh-oh.
Tracy, did you say you had a conflict?
I do.
How about the next Friday, the 6th?
16th? That one I can probably make work.
Okay. It'll be like.
All day.
All day.
All day.
I might, it says tentative Pacific Northwest Christmas trees from last year. Yeah, I will see.
That's a work session, I guess.
It's a long one, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
Yeah. So I will see if the consultants is available on the 16th instead.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
16th, tentative.
Don Hardy is prepared to, in the next couple of weeks, he's preparing to send out a postcard to interested, to property owners that are possible candidates for the urban growth boundary area analysis. Once that postcard goes out, it will be very public what the city intends to do. So I wanted you to know that in the next couple of weeks that postcard was going out, and that may begin to raise questions that you have. So we will keep you informed as that postcard goes out. That's again part of the reason for the November 1st work session. But I just wanted you to know that once that postcard goes out, and it literally identifies candidate parcels on there that are all part of the 1 mile radius that the state requires that you identify, that people might start getting excited in a positive way or negative way about the UGB amendment.
Is this for
process.
the urban growth boundaries?
It is.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
So when they get excited and ask us, what do we tell them?
For the comprehensive plan.
You tell them to contact staff, which will also be on the postcard. Yeah. And we will, and staff will be happy to answer their questions. Groundbreaking for the multi-use building at the fairgrounds is October 12th at 10 a.m. So I wanted to make sure that you had that on your calendar if you can attend. Then I wanted Chief Tro to present a budget opportunity. And he wrote a memo to me, and I wanted him to present that to the council tonight.
Hello again. Thank you, Eileen. I believe Eileen sent the memo to you, to the council?
Yes, I did.
Did you? Okay. So I'll touch a little bit about it. So we have an opportunity here to add an additional school resource officer at Baker Prairie Middle School. So a little background, we've had a school resource officer at the high school for over 20 years now. It's probably 22, 23 years, and it's been a great partnership. That cost is split 50-50 with the school district and the city. So that's 50% of his salary and benefits for the entire year. The person, the SRO, during the summer helps supplement our patrol staff, which takes a lot of vacations in the summer, so it's really nice to have. So we've talked about adding a second SRO at the middle school for years, but it's really never been real serious until Dr. Downs arrived over the last 2 years. So we've been talking about which ways, how we could add this. School district is actually ready to move forward to add an additional school resource officer this year if possible. They were able to identify some funding to pay for half of the position for the rest of this fiscal year. I kind of estimated that if we can make this happen, and if it gets approved, December 1st through the end of June would be the cost, which roughly is around $100,000 for the 7th months. So they would pay $50,000, and then we would pay about $50,000. I had Eric estimate savings that I have in our police budget right now today from positions that aren't filled that were supposed to start on July 1st. So for instance, our code enforcement officer was supposed to start on July 1st, but it's about 2.5 months of salary savings that we did not spend. We also had Officer Y that was supposed to start July 1st, but we could never get them to start right on July 1st, right, just because of the process. That was about 2.5 months also of savings. And then we're in the middle of hiring another officer, and that's going to be about 4 to 5 months of savings. So in our current budget and personnel services, we have over $100,000 in savings. So it will easily pay for the $50,000 if we went to hire somebody to add the additional SRO. And again, next year's cost would be requested in the regular budget process. I know there's some concerns, especially after Eric's presentation, about future, right? I think this is sustainable, at least in the short term. Not only this year can we take care of it, but next year we have some, like a one-time cost that will be going away, our Axon body cams that we'll be paying off. That's $350,000 that will be less in our budget next year. And the other thing that I've discussed with Eileen, and we both discussed with the city of Molalla, they're interested in maybe contracting our behavioral health specialist out a portion of the time. So we're working on that. And so that could be a source of revenue for us to help offset the cost for the school resource officer. Like I said, this position will be filled by existing staff. We have several officers that are interested in the school resource officer position. There's a few cities I know near us. Woodburn has 2 school resource officers. Sherwood just actually added the same kind of program that we're looking at. So they have one at the high school, and the second one is at the middle school. And the plan is also for the one at the middle school is to visit and be a resource and take calls at all the grade schools also in the city. So we've never had that. Currently, if Baker Prairie or one of the grade schools calls the police for something, we send a patrol officer. We do not send the school resource officer from the high school because we want that person there at the high school. It's our biggest, right? It's our most populated school, and we want them there and not, roaming around at other places. But with the school resource officer at the middle school, we would allow them to do that. So, the benefits, is connecting with students, building positive relationship with students. So not only, at the middle school is not just, a law enforcement officer. It's a mentor, it's a friend, right? It's a counselor to be there to build relationships. So I think this is something that we need. And I think it's a good opportunity because we're getting a full-time officer position for really 50% of the cost. And the school has been, like I said, a great partner, and to build those relationships even better with the school, I think it's a good thing to do. And any questions?
So you and the interim city administrator concur with this? You recommend it?
I do recommend it.
Yes, I've
Okay.
asked Eileen, we've discussed it a few times, and
Okay.
she supports it, which is
Okay,
great.
and Dr. Downs,
Fully supports it, and he's actually come to me requesting this to see if we could start it this year.
okay. Well, I think it's an important position, in light of the news of things happening, bomb scares at junior highs, the fentanyl overdoses, massive fentanyl overdoses, various things. I think it's a positive image for the kids, and especially as they move from junior high into high school, and they start seeing the faces in a positive face. So I would support it.
Well, thank you.
I'm going to second that. I'm going to support that as well. Having one child that has already moved on from Baker Prairie to having another that's about to go into Baker Prairie, I think it would be extremely beneficial, knowing just how much it is loved to have a school resource officer there for a child to have that peace of mind, that familiar face. I believe this would be a great opportunity.
Great, thanks.
I have a question.
Yes.
Counselor Patton?
So the school would be paying 50% this year. Will they be paying 50% in perpetuity or just for this year?
No, they are committed for future years, just like the school resource officer at the high school where they pay 50%. They will continue to pay 50% for the SRO at the middle school.
Okay.
Yes.
I will say I am a proponent of moving forward with this, but I will put this caveat on there. As you know, Chief, I am a huge advocate of our police force, and I think that one of the reasons we are a very safe city is because of them. But when it comes to the budget, the police force takes up over 60% of the city's funds. And all the rest of the services that the citizens demand fall into that remaining 30-some percent, which is not a very big percent. And so I think as we, as a council, start to look at ways that we try to keep the wheels on this bus, we're going to have to come up with some ways to come up with alternate funding for not only other departments, but the police. Because I know one of your goals has been to put, I believe it's 3 officers per division per shift?
Just, 3 officers on at all times.
At all times, and we are not there yet.
We are not there.
And that's going to take, the last thing I want to see is the police officers filling potholes because we have no public works department, because it's all going to police, okay? So we need to head that off at the pass.
Totally understand.
And I would like to see, you get to that 3. But we are going to have to really have some interesting conversations about how we do that.
Absolutely, thanks.
Anyone else? Counselor Banks?
I'm in favor of this too, having been in the middle school many, many times. I worry about the jealousy that the high school is going to have because there's more than twice as many kids there. They're going to now want a second SRO for parity. I would recommend if we could hold it off until January, half of December's Christmas break anyway, and then it gets it under $50,000, and then Eileen can just do that decision on her own without council approval.
Yeah, that's possible. One of the things that I just kind of guesstimated December 1st was we would not be able to fill that spot until Officer Y, who was just sworn in, is done with training. And we estimated around that time, but you're right, that's a good point. Christmas break is a couple weeks, so on or around that time would be.
The other thing, it'd be nice if, when we were doing the budgeting decisions for the following year, if you and Dr. Downs could prepare a presentation to us on how effective this was at the middle school. Did this make a difference with the kids?
It's a good idea.
In terms of deciding to do this perpetually.
Yeah.
Counselor Davis, Counselor Stearns, anything? No?
I think it's a good idea. I do have a child at Baker Prairie right now, so I'll probably get feedback on it. So just letting you know.
Hopefully not.
Right. Yeah, I likewise would support this. So, it's an important thing that we have for protecting our kiddos. So I absolutely support this. going forward. Anything else? Counselor Davis, did you have anything? No?
Just a quick comment. The fire department, police department have an excellent rapport, relationship, and Canby Police support us 100% on CPR cases and medical calls and things. And so I can also see this police officer being very helpful for us.
Right.
At not only the high school, which they have been, but at the junior high as well. Because they do an excellent job on CPR and giving us information when we arrive.
Yeah, good point.
Okay, very good. Okay, anything else? Did you want to add, George, or give it back to Eileen?
Nope,
here?
thank you. Well,
No.
I'll work
Okay.
with Eileen and Dr. Downs on making it happen, so.
Yeah, and officially, well, we are in regular meeting, but we'll probably have to do a supplemental budget to move the money in place, so you will see this decision again. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Last item I have is miscellaneous updates on public works projects. I'm just going to blow through these, Jerry, but if you have any questions, you can make your way to the front. South Walnut Street is in design phase and waiting for an access permit to 99E from ODOT. And we will, this requires an IGA from ODOT that they are working on. So North Pine and Northeast 10th engineering has started in the design phase. Public Works is going to have a leaf drop-off during budget hours by appointment only. This will be scheduled through Rhonda. Roselle, if anyone has any questions, feel free to contact her. And this could start as early as next week. The Public Works Fueling Station is scheduled to go before the Planning Commission October 23rd. We still have no update on the ODOT 99E project. Sorry, Jerry says. We still are waiting for a response from Clackamas County on the Traffic Safety Commission requests that came in a few weeks ago. We hope to have an update soon, and Public Works will start next week on taking down, actually, they started this week on taking down all the hanging baskets in the downtown area. So sad to see those go, but change of season, so, yeah.
Right.
So Jerry,
Okay.
is there anything else that you wanted to add to that? Okay, great.
Council President Hensley, I have a question about that, or
Okay, Councilor
question. At the last meeting, I had mentioned, I think it was at the last meeting, or it was just in a general conversation. If 99E is not paved this year, this winter, it is going to blow up. It is going to become a hot mess, and people are going to be right agitated. So I had mentioned we need to put a button on our website, on the front page, no less, that if you have complaints about 99E, you click this and it takes you to a letter that you can then, like a email, a thing that sends something to ODOT to say they have a problem with 99E. I would like to see us look at the possibilities of that, because it is going to be it is going to be such a mess.
I agree.
Councilor Patton, thanks for bringing that up. They are going to rut pave again. I heard through the maintenance staff that they're getting ready to do some sort of patchwork out there to try to hold it together another year, but maybe also have their risk management email on there too, so that the people know who to go to when they do have damaged cars and stuff like that. I think that's a great idea. Maybe I will send an email to them asking what we do for that, because that's a great idea to get ahead of it.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I patched the butt crack rip outs in my work pants, but there's only so many years that those patches work. And 99E is the biggest butt crack that this city has, and it's had too many patches put on it.
We have a hard freeze this year. It'll be a
It's
bad
going to be
deal.
a hot mess.
Yep. Hopefully we have a mild winter and it holds together until they can get it paved. But anyways, thanks for bringing that up.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Patton.
I'm so agitated.
Ever entertaining. Okay, Actually, that does remind me, there was one thing I was going to mention in liaison reports. Although the council, the commission hasn't met, Traffic Safety Commission hasn't met yet until next week, we did have some emails go back and forth, and I did post something on Facebook, but I thought I would announce it to the nines of folks here, that the bollards, the delineators down on South End Road that are missing, those are set to be, they're going to start that project up and put them back in starting on Friday. They had been waiting for those parts to come in, and they finally got their back-ordered shipment. So they will be putting those delineators back in, and hopefully by the end of the weekend, it'll look like it used to. All right. Do we have any other citizen input? Maya?
We do not.
Okay. Action review, please.
You have approved the consent agenda and approved ordinances numbers 1612 and 1613 to a second reading on October 18th, 2023.
An hour and 8 minutes, and we got 3 things done. Awesome. That's funny. Okay, anything else for the good of the order? I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilor Patton and a second by Councilor Maldonado. It's a non-debatable motion. All
It
those
was
in
actually
favor?
Counselor Banks that made the motion.
Oh, I apologize, Councilor Bangs. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Councilor Patton? No? Okay, we're adjourned.
Have a good
Good
night,
night,
everyone.
Canby.
Have a good night.